The Eastern States Exposition is one of the most popular attractions in Western Massachusetts. Amongst the unique destinations on the fairgrounds is the collection of authentic buildings that make up the Storrowton Village. One of the fortunate buildings preserved was the Little Red Schoolhouse, which originally came from the small hill town of Whately, Massachusetts. The history of this little treasure dates back to 1811. Originally called the North Street School, it was one of two model schoolhouses constructed in Whately that year. Neither school would be the first for Whately, as the town's interest in constructing schools dates back to 1780, 9 years after incorporation in 1771. Whately, like other towns being settled around New England, recognized the importance of educating children. As town historian James Monroe Crafts wrote in his 1899 book on the history of the ambitious little town,
3 schoolhouses were first built, for the learning and habits of industry and knowledge of some profitable employment. Here enjoined not only fitted the child to become a useful member of the state, but at the same fitted him for individual excellence and happiness. The proper aim of school instruction, as of all instruction, is to fit them for efficient duty. There is need of knowledge, need of culture, and need to learn the dangers of life and how to shun them, as well as the best way to use its advantages. The child needs to get a true idea of his dependence on others for his happiness and influence, and to believe in and respect the rights of others, as well as to believe in his personal independence and claim his own rights. He needs to have his wits sharpened early if he is to be a successful competitor for position and power.
The first 3 schools consisted of a 16 by 16 square foot school in the Straits, a 15 by 18 square foot school in West Whately, and a 20 by 16 foot schoolhouse on Haydenville Road. By 1790, 2 more schoolhouses had been constructed, a 20 by 16 square foot building and a 14 by 18 square foot building. All 5 buildings were different in size, style, and construction materials. This changed in 1799 when Whately decided to rebuild the schoolhouse located at Chestnut Plain Road as a 30 by 24 foot building that would become Whately's first model schoolhouse. The construction was clapboarded and shingled with shutters for windows, and its most unique asset, a brick fireplace with hearth and chimney. For the next 11 years, these 5 schoolhouses would teach pupils the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, in 2 terms of 12 weeks each, 1 winter and 1 summer term. Eventually, the village's ever-growing population brought about the construction of more school buildings. In 1811, Whately rebuilt the schoolhouse in the Straits as an 18 by 24 square foot schoolhouse, and constructed 2 identical 20 by 24 square foot brick schoolhouses, the North Street and South Center schools. Both buildings were designed by brothers John and Salmon White and built by brickmaker Thomas Crafts. At the time, they were considered state-of-the-art, and once constructed, began educating young scholars and did so for almost 100 years. Grades 1 through 9 were taught by a single teacher, and subjects had expanded beyond the 3 R's to include geography, history, grammar, and rhetoric. At the time these were built, an unmarried man or woman could serve as a teacher. However, by the end of the century, with America's growing industrial economy, teachers were almost always unmarried women. Supplies and materials were limited to a slate and a piece of chalk for lessons, and a few books were used to assist with reading. For penmanship lessons, ABCdarians, as pupils were referred to, were privileged to use paper and ink, both considered expensive items. Boys always sat at one side of the room and girls on the other. Younger children sat at the front with older ones at the back. It was part of an older child's lesson and duties to assist the teacher around the school, and both boys and girls would help teach the younger children. All children were expected to behave and carry out their responsibilities, and those who didn't were publicly shamed by wearing a dunce cap. The schoolhouses were located such as to make it possible for children to walk to school, but if a milk wagon or another horse and wagon were passing by, the child might hitch a ride. The North Street School, being located at the bottom of a hill, great fun for some of the students was to sled down the hill during the winter term to get to the building faster. For almost 100 years, the North Street School and its sister South Center School served their districts well. Eventually, however, as Whately's population grew and as advancements in education came along, Whately's little schoolhouses were phased out. In 1910, Whately built and opened a new elementary school building located in Whately Center. This new school was constructed to serve all of the elementary age school children in Whately. Older students who went on to school chose Deerfield High School, Smith Vocational School, or Northampton High School. Now surplus to need, the town decided to sell those smaller school buildings that were in decent condition. The first to go was the North Street School's sister, the South Center School. The sale voted by the 1910 annual town meeting. The building was on the market only briefly before a young couple purchased the schoolhouse and remodeled it as a home. The building still exists today. Next to go on the market was the North Street School, after a vote at the 1914 town meeting. Unfortunately, there were no interested takers. For the next decade and a half, the future of the building looked dim. However, as the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. In 1926, 12 years after the North Center School was put up for sale, the building was purchased, disassembled brick by brick, and moved by truck to the Big E in Springfield. Although the original location of Whately's little schoolhouse has long since grown in and any trace of the building has vanished, its memory and legacy live on. In Whately, the school is well remembered by many who live in the community and whose family members had been pupils. Adults happily share memories of their relatives sledding to school in the winter and other joyful stories of learning the 3 R's.